Today on Galaxy Tenants, we head to Boulder, Colorado for a conversation and a song with Andrew McConathy of the Drunken and Yarmonygrass.
I've been listening to your recent live streams and whatnot, and very, very clean sound.
Cool. I actually just got a new audio interface and 1080 HD camera. The Microsoft LifeCam is the webcam that I got, and it doesn't work very well with Catalina, the Mac operating system that I'm currently running on. And I think a lot of people are realizing that now. If you upgrade, if you make that last upgrade, there's a lot of software and hardware that is all of a sudden finite, that you cannot use any longer.
That's frustrating.
So yeah, it is frustrating. The lucky thing is Alesis just put out this multi-mix USB FX4 board that I've got. You can look at it right here.
Oh, sweet.
And it's basically, puts it all in your computer, but also has effects on it is the most important thing. Because what I realized, I finally got I was just using an iPhone mic for all my streams. And then someone who's really been doing this professionally watched one of the streams and said, "Hey man, are you using an interface?" And I went and borrowed a friend's, but it didn't have any sort of balance on it or EQ settings or anything. And, I'm a reverb guy.
Holy shit. I heard a couple of your original live streams, and you were in a building with wood paneling and stuff, and behind you were the mountains, I believe, but it was very echoey initially when I heard some of that stuff.
Yeah. No,
you really dialed it in.
I'm not surprised. So trying to dial it in. I got the nicer camera than just my 2014 MacBook Air or whatever. And I don't think I'm going to use it this week because we're going to be streaming from Andy Thorne's deck up Lee Hill. But the following Thursday, when I go back to solo live stream, I'm now ready. Because obviously if I'm singing and it just sounds like this, it's very dull, and there's no balls. It's just flat and raw sounding. So it's nice to be able to put a little spank on it.
That's a great tool. It's interesting because everybody is having to update their equipment or get equipment because of the whole pandemic thing, and it's really happening out of necessity. But the great thing is that even when things go back to some level of normalcy, whenever that is, everybody will have this home setup where they can do these cool, all-inclusive broadcasts, which I think is really amazing. Yeah,
we'll see what ends up really shaking out here or how it goes down. But I'm assuming that the industry is going to be changed for a very, very long time. And certainly for the smaller bands, it's already difficult right now to find the right time to do a stream just because there's so much content out there. And it's hard because there's so many big bands out there that have resources and budgets that the smaller bands don't. So I think you're going to continue to see that gap widen as far as the production quality goes on these things, which is why I'm trying to dude, it's crazy. When I started looking into this a month ago, hardware didn't really exist to do what I wanted to do.
Do you have your reverb on right now? Dial it back just a little bit.
How's that?
Cleaner, flatter, more podcasty.
Yeah. More podcasty, yeah.
There you are.
And so, the reality is the learning curve is extremely steep, especially for an acoustic musician like myself. A lot of this stuff is for electronica. And
if you want to announce your new DJ project, I will stand by and you can do that now.
I haven't quite dialed that in yet, but I want to make sure that it sounds good and that people want to tune in because of the sound quality and the video quality, and not just there's just so many people out there whipping out the iPhone, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially right now because in the DIY mobile virtual reality that we're in now, that's the whole game, you know.
And
So
to be candid, the microphones and the cameras on the newer phones are fucking awesome. They're better
Dude.
than the SLRs were 5, 10 years ago. You know, it's the quality's amazing. So yeah, it's not the best, but it's great that what is being captured by fans isn't that pixelated garbage that we used to see all the time.
right. Have you seen Mimi Naja's videos that she's been putting out, those acapella videos?
No, I haven't, but I've seen a lot of people, not her specifically, but I've seen a lot of people doing those acapellas, and
Right.
it's really cool. I mean, again, it's kind of happening out of necessity, but it creates this path forward for some cool things. And is there not also, I don't want to say power, but isn't there something good about having control, complete control over being able to output a product, and you're not relying on a production team or a venue, and you can, I mean, there's the competition is obviously very steep, and like you said, figuring out when to broadcast, but there's something very cool about a band being able to create from point A to point Z everything and output it in a packaged product.
Absolutely. Yeah, what I was gonna say is Mimi's just using an iPhone 11, and it's incredible audio and video, but it's a brand new iPhone. I thought about just doing that, which would have been easier. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's an exciting time to be a musician because the game has changed, and in a lot of ways, I think there might be more opportunities for someone like myself to really make a difference and you know, develop as an artist and get my music out there. You know, it's not that touring isn't fun and hard as hell, but you know, this is a little bit more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to drive halfway across the country to play for 30 people.
less overhead. Less
So-
overhead, more people tuning in.
True. Exactly. You reach more people by just staying home.
Yeah. Which is weird because we all want to get out of the house and see music. But like I said, you know, the music industry is going to be very different after this as we know it. I don't think you'll see a lot of deposits going out. I don't think you'll see a lot of guarantees anymore. I think the structure of the music industry is going to potentially shift to a new paradigm of you get X% of the tickets that you sell, and that's the deal. And so that if a pandemic strikes, you know, I mean, think about the festivals that were contracted with the $100,000 bands out there that had to pay a deposit, and potentially even the second deposit. So I think those big promoters are going to be very, very hesitant to ever go into some sort of a, oh yeah, I'll give you money in advance situation.
So I want to make a comment on that. I think that, you know, the advances are important for obviously travel or big expenses, but I also see the other side of it where I used to be very anti-door deal, but I think that in some situation, a small guarantee is fine, whatever, but I think it's important for bands to be able to, you know, you have to be able to sell hard tickets. The risk has to go both ways, and there's some kind of balance in between what's been happening. What do you got there? What kind?
This is 14er Boulder Mac Miracle Alien Cookies.
What's the THC content on that?
Not sure if you can actually see what that looks like, but
back up just a little bit. Back up. Yeah, it's a little pixelated, but I see the color in it. It's pretty.
It's very white. And I think that I got this, like, it was like $70 for a half an ounce.
That's great.
It's actually only 24% THC.
That's good. You don't have to lose your fucking mind. I have something right now that's a 33, something like 33.7, I think, and it's just like, ugh.
Oh my god.
But
yeah, great.
It takes that to put a beast like me down, you know.
I tried to get as high as possible for you this morning, Justin.
Thanks, man. Oh, I really appreciate that. What a kind gesture.
I figured you'd appreciate it.
Speaking of getting high, I wanted to tell a story, or just a brief story about one of the highest times of my life. Was at one of your events. Did you get one?
Yeah, I got one.
Good. So let me, I guess I should, I've skipped over introducing you, so I should say this is Andrew McConathy from the Drunken and Yarmonygrass. One of the highest times of my life was at Yarmony on the banks of the river. I took some liquid LSD, and the train came around the bend, and that high pitch frequency of the grinding on the tracks just had me on another plane, where I was trying to communicate with my buddy, and neither of us were able to articulate words. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm jealous of you. I need a joint right now.
Yeah.
Jesus. But
that noise is awful.
You know, in the moment, it wasn't even awful. It wasn't good. It was just, it took me to a different place. And it was a combination of the very pure LSD and me staring off into space as that high frequency. And like I said, my buddy and I were trying to communicate, and there was no words that could be put together. And it was one of the better days I've had in Colorado, and was spent at,
What year was that?
2010.
And who was playing?
Oh, I don't. And in 2010, which it was a great lineup. That was the first year I came out there. I met Tim
to Railroad.
Yeah, so I met Tim Carbone at Gray Fox earlier that year, and out in New York, for those who don't know. And he told me about this fucking festival that had a floating stage, and he went on and on and on, and never thought I'd end up there. And circumstances were that I had the opportunity and had a chance to go in 2010, and what an incredible festival. Where did that originate, and where did the concept come from, and how did it develop over the years to what it became?
The floating stage?
The festival itself, but sure, the floating stage too.
Well, I guess it all started, it's a combination of things, I guess. I was a big string cheese fan in high school and college. Probably seen almost 200 string cheese concerts at this point. And I was a ski bum. I was being a ski instructor, ski bum, in Vail, Colorado in 2005 and 6. And I was a children's ski instructor. And
sketchy.
Yeah, and the following, the last year I did it, you get a pay bump if you can speak Spanish. So I wrote I had written down that I was fluent in Spanish, which I can speak a little bit of Spanish, you know. Do I know how to say roll the ski onto the edge? Probably not. But anyways, I had really, if the opportunity had arisen, I had always kind of strayed away from it. And then finally, they've said, hey, there's a Spanish speaking group. They're in town for 2 weeks. You want to do this like two-week private with these Mexican folks, who were always like known, for spending a lot of money, taking great care of their instructors, big tips, So I finally was like, okay, let's do it. And I had these kids for maybe a week and a half or something, and it was not going well. I literally I think I got maybe two groups in 2 weeks. And I just lost my marbles and finally said, like, I have got to figure out something else to do with my life. This is killing me. So I decided to start a music festival.
What year was the first one?
This was 2000. Well, the first event that I really did was a Get Out and Vote concert in the fall of 2005 at the Villar Center in Beaver Creek. And it was David Grisman Quintet with a band called Strings for Industry opening. And Strings for Industry was Scott Law, Ty North, the original bassist from Leftover Salmon, Tony Furtado, and Daryl Anger.
Jesus.
And at that point, it was just a string band. It was acoustic bluegrass, and it was freaking fantastic. And it was, they were all local to Portland, Oregon. So we flew them out. Grisman was in town already, I think. And yeah, we raised a bunch of money for the Democratic candidate here in Eagle County, or there in Eagle County. I'm in Boulder County right now, but I grew up in Eagle County. So that was the first event I did. And then that summer, we ended up doing a 4th of July party at my parents' house for just this huge, there's probably 200 people at this party. And we got a band named Railroad Earth to play. And so the infamous story there is Railroad Earth was still in the RV at this point. The RV that they used to travel around in, all of them, and Phil and Stacy, and Partridge, and J-Ro. And they were coming from, well, this is what I've heard. I don't know if I've ever heard this from a band member, I suppose, but what I heard is the RV, like the roof blew off the RV or something when they were leaving High Sierra to try to get to Yarmony Ranch for this 4th of July party. And if it weren't for the 4th of July party and the money that we had given them to come out, that their entire summer tour would have been ruined. But they had this money to repair everything, you know. So, anyways, that was kind of the first Yarmony.
What's Yarmony Ranch?
This was my mom and dad's ranch outside of McCoy, Colorado. So in between State Bridge and McCoy, in between Vail and Steamboat, near on the Colorado River. And my mom was breeding horses there, warm bloods. So it was called Yarmony Creek Ranch. And if you ever see on all the Yarmony assets that we have, there's a brand on it. And that was the brand that was actually, you know, the actual ranch brand. And then my dad actually started Yarmony Cattle Company, and they actually branded cows with it. So he was doing Wagyu beef. He's not doing it anymore. But so we're kind of, you know, we like to pretend that we're cowboys. I got a cowboy hat on, you know. But yeah, so then the following year we did the party again. And at that point I was like, wow, I want to do this for a living. I want to be a concert promoter for a living, which that didn't work out.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, exactly. And I booked State Bridge Lodge for 3 nights, Labor Day weekend. And so that was the first annual Yarmonygrass Music Festival, and it was at State Bridge Lodge, the original State Bridge, before it burned down. And we had, you know, Honky Tonk Home Slice always kind of like anchored Yarmony back in the glory days. So I was always such a big Bill Nurse fan because of String Cheese that they were always kind of, and Scott Laub became my guitar instructor at that time. So I had all sorts of hands in the pot for various reasons. You know, I wanted to be a concert promoter, but I was also a creative writing major in college. I'd written a book, and, you know, I wanted to maybe try my hand at writing songs. So that all kind of came out of the Yarmony thing. I didn't have that before Yarmony. You know, it was something that passion grew from the first couple of years that we, you know, just being around all these musicians made me want to buy a guitar and try to become a songwriter. But up until that point, you know, I didn't have a background in music. I had taken a guitar elective in middle school for like 3 months. You know, it was like twice a week for 3 months or something. And then I had taken 3 months of guitar lessons from a guy named Paul Asbell at Middlebury College in Vermont, where I went to school. And he was, his claim to fame was he's Trey Anastasio's guitar teacher. And obviously I didn't turn into a ripping guitar player, but he hated me. I would not do my homework. And every time I'd come in for the lesson, he'd be like, all right, let's see that scale that we worked on last time that you're supposed to have down for this. And I couldn't do it. And he would just be like, all right, sit in here and work on the same thing you worked on last week. I'll be in like the next room getting paid to do nothing. So,
funny how we have these great resources and we don't appreciate them at the time sometimes.
Yeah, I was taking Intro to Music Theory at that point at Middlebury. And my claim to fame is that I got an F. It's the only class I've ever failed in my entire life, was Intro to Music Theory. I'm actually friends with the professor on Facebook. She's got perfect pitch, went to Juilliard.
So you failed an introductory course to the thing that you wanted to really make your career.
At that point, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do.
But it's funny to look back on that and think that you failed a music course, and that's your whole life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's beautiful.
I'm really good at what I do. / we're winging it.
Yeah, that's okay, though. I think that the result of what you output is usually pretty good.
Yeah, it's come a long ways. Certainly musically, and certainly, you know, the festival this last year was by far the best one we've ever had. And
I want to ask you about that. I want to ask how you go from having the best year to then announcing that you're taking a year off, which is interesting because if you just would have kept your mouth shut, the COVID thing would have just taken
Yeah.
care of that.
Right.
But what happens in between, and you don't have to get too specific if you don't want, but what happens in between selling out a festival and it being the best year to deciding to take a year off? Is it a year of reflection? Is it a year of rebuilding? Is it revisiting what the model should be? Because for me, getting the news that Yarmony wasn't going to happen borderline ruined my summer. Obviously,
Yeah.
COVID took it a step further, but I really look forward to Yarmony every year. So I wonder what transpires to get you to that point.
It was a lot of different things. For me, definitely having never taken the time to focus on the band full time, and not having anyone in place to do all the tasks that I do, and honestly, not wanting to downgrade from where we were. Yarmony has had a lot of different faces over the last 14 years. As far as just like how, it's been a lot of different animals. At one point, it's been a 200-person festival at State Bridge. At one point, it's been a 3,000-person festival at Copper Mountain. Then it went back to a 500-person festival at Rancho Del Rio. Then it was 1,000. Then it was and then we wanted to go to 1,500 this year, and the county only let us do 1,000. So what we really were talking about was trying to get permitting for 1,500 tickets out there, which would really change the game for us. And the county wouldn't do it last year. And in order to do it, which is also going to basically create, the result of this is going to create our model based on how many tickets we can sell. And knowing that is going to take a really long time to actually get an assessor out there from the county and carve out the space and get approval for it, we foresaw taking about 6 months from start to finish. And at that point, we're way behind the game. And we can't proceed with the lineup and get the bands that we want unless we know what the capacity is, essentially. And the model has changed significantly over the years. Like I said, we haven't really stuck with one ever. We've had different partnerships in place over the years and different people making decisions. Not just me. I'm the only person that's been at everyone, obviously. But, just a lot of there's some not pushing and shoving necessarily, but people are involved and they want to see things in bands that they want. That's how this goes. And so as a result, the model has shifted every year. And honestly, we just weren't in a place after the festival this year, when all was said and done, September 1st, take 2 weeks off afterwards and breathe and then talk September 1st. And we just didn't have a plan in place for how to execute what the next step was and put the festival on simultaneously because of the information that we didn't have. And honestly, the partnership was
ever-changing
and uncertain on how we were going to move forward. And as a result, I made the decision to hold off because I have a variety of reasons there. But first and foremost, my personal sanity and, wanting to really clear my head and focus on music and the band, and something that I've never done before. So, in a lot of ways, I feel like being a musician and a promoter at the same time, it makes it really, really complicated. And I really just want to be a musician. And so my hope is when all this is said and done, that when we do come back together, and again, I don't know if we ever will at this point. And that's because I think the festival model is going to be very difficult to uphold as we know it in the COVID era. And we're going to see capacity restrictions. I don't foresee us. We'll see. We'll see what happens in the next year, I guess. But, the word on the street that I'm hearing is, 2022 is a more realistic expectation for putting on an event of over 500 people. And again, there's also who knows if people would even buy tickets to something like that right now, if people will want to go back to that depending on what the pandemic climate is like at that point. So there's just so much speculation right now and so many unknowns that, for one, I don't imagine the county is going to approve a bigger capacity out there now. So what we wanted to do, we probably can't do, but we'll see. I mean, honestly, I'm very, very happy that we decided to do that, because dealing with contracts and deposits and everything with bands would just be a freaking nightmare. So super fortunate in that regard. The flip side is that my band is doing absolutely nothing because of the pandemic. So
I want to jump into talking about the Drunken Hearts. I'm going to grab just a quick cup of coffee, a refill here if you need to do the same.
Yeah, refill.
Okay, cool. All right, before we jump into talking about the Drunken Hearts, I want to just take a second and thank you for all of the years of hard work in throwing one of my favorite festivals, if not my favorite festival, and all the great times I've had, all the friends I've had, all of the memories. Yeah, I'm overwhelmingly grateful for you putting on that event and taking on the financial responsibility and just whatever responsibility you've taken on, and risk you've taken for us to be able to do that year after year is very special. And thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think a lot of folks just see it as a big party and don't realize that it's a lifetime of work at this point. I started the festival when I was 23, 24, which was the dumbest thing that I've ever done in my entire life, for sure. And it's easy to look at it as something that's a big party and it's all about them, but it's actually it's very difficult and it takes a lot of work to put on. And as soon as I made the call to not do it this year, it felt amazing. There was a huge weight had been lifted. And, from September to January, when we were kind of figuring out if we were going to be able to do it or if, and how, well, I was stressed out, and it was great to say we were taking the year off. And I think a lot of people thought, hey, that means the festival's over, and who knows? With what's happened, I don't know how to answer that, but we definitely intend to put it on again if we can at some point. But, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a couple of years.
That's fine. I can wait.
Yeah. The model really needs to be perfect. We sold out the festival and, financially didn't do well still because of the model.
Whose fault is that?
Ours.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's
our fault.
If your budget exceeds 100% ticket sales,
the parking situation wasn't dialed in. And after 14 years or 9 years out at Rancho, I'd like that to be executed better. And
it should be a well-oiled machine at this point.
And we had to cut ticket sales off long before we wanted to on site. And that's not great. But the reality is it's a very difficult place to put on a successful event. So every year that we've gone out there has been a fucking labor of love. I mean, it's so much work for nothing in return, with the exception of everyone who just is having the time of their life, which is great. Obviously, it's awesome to see that, but at the same time, it's also difficult to have them not necessarily, in my mind, appreciate how much actually goes into putting on something like that, and the financial burden, the financial losses. Sure, there's been some gains, but my music itself is a gain. Obviously, my musical relationships have all come from Yarmony, so I'm so appreciative of that. But there's so much of it that it's just not fun, and
Just
that I will not miss in this time.
for folks who are unfamiliar with Rancho Del Rio, it's in Bond, Colorado, which is a few hours out from Denver, and it's a very remote site with limited resources, very little to no internet connectivity, and to get everything out there must just be a huge cost in and of itself. And maintaining that site for a weekend, which is, in my opinion, it's a perfect site in both crowd size from a fan perspective, but also the way the two stages alternate and the Colorado River runs through it. It's one of the most beautiful sites I've ever been to. It's one of the most out there, remote. It's just such a unique experience. And like I said, the Colorado River runs right through the site. So you have all these people just getting after it in the river. And there's got to be even a lot of liability with that.
Absolutely. And the floating stage, the insurance aspect of the floating stage is incredibly detrimental to the model, by the way. So
then you don't have a floating stage.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
This year was we really decided to market it for the first time ever because we thought the insurance guys were on board. And I don't need to go into too many details, but let's just say that there were big financial repercussions from the marketing of the floating stage.
Which is insane because for the most part, you can stand up in that whole stretch of the river and it's very low key.
Yeah. That was, that's why we had so many people out there, and it was the best one ever because people actually figured out that we had a floating stage. But now everyone knows that we have a floating stage, including the insurance people. That hasn't been super fun dealing with, but
understood.
It's all good.
Well, I have high hopes for the return of the festival in a sustainable format financially for you, and where you have a team around you that's pulling a lot of weight as well, so that's not all on you. I do want to talk about the Drunken Hearts and where you guys were at leading into this pandemic and kind of the trajectory of where you guys were going and what you were working on.
Well, I mean, honestly, before the pandemic hit, I was planning on taking the next 6 months off, basically. I was going to perform as a solo artist at Northwest String Summit. And the Drunken Hearts had a couple weeks of tour here and there. But, for the most part, we were really not going to be playing many shows. So, and again, I said I wanted to take time off and focus on music and the band, and I really wanted to do some traveling and write a whole other batch of songs for a new album so that when the fall rolls around and we really ramp things up, we've got another thing to go into the studio with to pitch to a new producer. Was talking to Nathaniel Rateliff's management about him producing it back in what was that, February? That's when I was going to travel. I was going to go to Kauai. I was going to go to the Southwest and kind of hole up in a cabin with my guitar and notebook. I was going to do kind of the shit that as a writer I've never done because of the responsibilities of the festival and a job. And I finally, for the first time, was going to, just go be a, beat bum.
Well, I would argue that now
be a little hobo for a couple months,
maybe now is the perfect time to do that.
Well, I do. I definitely am going to spend some time this summer doing that, without a doubt.
It sounds very socially distant.
I currently have a lease on my car, so I can't really drive anywhere super far. Where the whole idea, I was going to hit the coast, West Coast, maybe Big Sur, New Mexico. I don't know, connect all that shit somehow. But
I love New Mexico.
Now not being able to fly, I don't foresee myself flying anytime soon. I've heard that the airport experience is extremely frightening at the moment. You either get on an empty plane, which sounds good and is what you would expect at the moment, or you get to sit on a sold out fucking plane. And they haven't removed the seats. They're still selling all the tickets, and so it's nothing's changed except hopefully everybody's wearing a mask, which at that point, that many people in that small of a space, your mask is not doing anything for you. So
that doesn't do shit. I love that United said they weren't going to sell the middle seats, and then they just did, and then they didn't mandate masks.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So that just isn't going to fly with me. I've been seeing my parents too often, and they're older, so I can't. I don't care if I get it necessarily, but I don't want to be affecting any other people with me having it. So
understood. Well, consider rolling down to New Mexico. Even go to Taos for a week or two. I mean, it's close and easy.
There's some killer Airbnb cabin type things that I've been looking at down there. I just need to find a good week. And Airbnb I've heard is like about to go under, so I'm not really sure what that means.
So, I guess I would ask in regards to traveling, and you mentioned touring. What's your favorite aspect of touring? And do you have any good tour stories?
I mean, the best part of touring is the first day. When you're leaving town and everybody's high on life, and you're and weed, and you're hitting I-25 or you're hitting 70, and hopefully you're driving west.
It's always the hope. You always want to go west.
Yeah. I always hate driving east. It's like a bad recurring nightmare to drive east. I love the West. I'm wearing a cowboy hat. I love the West. And yeah, that kind of adrenaline of what's ahead, who knows where you're going or how it's going to go. And then just, being out there with your best friends and obviously playing music and sharing the art with the world. But, it's really just about being out there. Montana, I love fucking touring in Montana, is amazing. But yeah, and playing festivals on tour is amazing. We did Four Peaks Festival last summer. That was probably the highlight of my summer. On the same day as Billy Strings and Andy Frasco. Same stage as those guys. It was killer. And yeah. So yeah, the Drunken Hearts, we were going to take a little bit of time off and try to get a new album together. And now, Corey had quit in December, Corey Montgomery, our electric guitar player. Not sure what it is about electric guitar players, but I just can't seem to stick with one. Or they can't seem to stick with me, rather.
I know you've disagreed with me in the past when we've had this conversation, but I really do think that the band could proceed as the core group, and everybody can step up to cover that kind of lead position. I know that it does change the dynamic, but I think that the older and the further down the road you guys get, the more capable you guys all are of filling that space. So I just want to say that again. Yeah,
I appreciate that. And we're kind of, the shows that we were about to play before the pandemic hit were all 4-piece. We were going to give it a shot and have some sit-ins at the end of each set to, make it full 5-piece band. But we were going to at least try to have the core 4. We've got, we did New Year's Eve by ourselves, the 4 of us. And, I don't know. We honestly, right now, I don't know how it's going to go. We haven't really gotten that far. This has been a very reflective time.
Well, there's no pressure right now.
And we haven't been talking a ton. We've been working on this video project. I've got this show coming out. Should be out next week. I've been saying that for a month now. But the first episode is with Tim Carbone. And so there's a video of he and I playing Townes Van Zandt song that's pre-recorded, but it's all studio quality. And then we did 2 videos. Is that the video
you sent me?
Yeah. And then we did 2. We haven't really aired that yet.
Understood.
And then 2 full band videos. So the core 4 with Tim, a Ryan Bingham song and a Jeff Bridges song. So we've got 3 videos, and I'm going to air it on Facebook Live through Zoom with a screen share in order to air the videos. And then I'll post the videos individually afterwards. and Tim will be on the Zoom call with me. So, and I'll do an interview. I'll do an interview with him, and then the next guest we've got lined up. I don't know who I'm going to do next, but it's supposed to be very casual and not stressful. But we've got Keith Mosley, Jason Han from String Cheese are going to do one as in an episode, and we try to choose a theme for every episode, which this episode was music from Crazy Heart, the movie with Jeff Bridges. So that Townes Van Zandt song, that Ryan Bingham song, and that Jeff Bridges song are all on the soundtrack. So try to, maybe it'll be a soundtrack theme for the whole show. I don't know, but I want to do Tom Petty Wildflowers for sure. Maybe a Bob Dylan one, definitely a John Prine one, a Townes Van Zandt one. I think, actually the Kitchen Dwellers, Torrin and Swain from the Dwellers are going to do a Townes Van Zandt one with us. They're confirmed. We've got Dave Johnston and Allie Crawl from Yonder confirmed. The Rev from Little Smokies is confirmed. And I'm also going to do some non-musical guests as well. Like I'd like to have you to discuss Music Marauders and your podcast. And All Four Guitars, which is a guitar company here in Denver that is probably most notable, or most notably, Paul Hoffman from Green Sky plays their guitars. And so we'll have Michael, the luthier, on as a guest. And just try to mix it up. We'll have some of my friends and actually an old bandmate, Zebulon Bowles, and my friend Axie Blunden from Open Vape, back in the Open Vape days. They moved to Asheville and started a hemp company, and they are now making hemp hand sanitizer. And so they've sent me a bunch. I've been promoting it. It's called Helios hand sanitizer. And so I'm going to have them on as a guest. Zeb can play fiddle. So, cool. just things like that, and try to cross promote and collaborate. And, this is totally separate from my solo live stream, which is Thirsty Thursday. So I'm not sure when it's going to air, but it's not going to be very consistent probably because of the amount of work it takes to get, maybe if I can do one once a month, it'll probably be something like that.
With this podcast, I've taken the approach of just putting stuff out as I have it. Sometimes we put out 4 shows, 3 shows a week. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2. But It's nice to not have that pressure and not feel like you have to force that,
Well, and the musicians, hopefully, I'll put as, the Drunken Hearts aren't necessarily like the house band. We've used, for the first episode they were. But I'm not necessarily going to keep it like that. It'll depend on the instrumentation of the guests. If we've got Keith Mosley, John's not going to play bass. Keith's going to play bass. So, Scott Law's confirmed and Samson Grisman. So, Sam Grisman's going to play upright on that one, not John. So, it'll, the band will change every week depending on what the instrumentation is. And I'm producing it. So I'm the producer, which is a cool thing for me. Usually in the band setting, I'm pretty democratic about everything as band leader. I want creative input from everybody. I want them all to feel invested. In this, I'm kind of just being way more of a dictator. Hey, I want you to solo here. I want you to lay out for the rest of it. Tim's going to take this solo. There's not much of a discussion on this. And that's been frustrating for some folks. But, this is kind of just, it was my idea. I'm doing it. It's supposed to be easy. There's not supposed to be this big discussion about everything. It's supposed to be super easy and not stressful. And as soon as you start complicating things, because it's a game of telephone now, because it's got to go to 5 people, and then they have to create something, and it's all pre-recorded. It's not live, so there isn't that improvisational capability. I mean, there's improv involved, but it's not what we're used to in the live setting. It's like a game of telephone. One little ripple creates a fucking wave 4 people down, and it's just, here's the thing: is I record my part first as acoustic guitarist and singer, and even if my arrangement isn't right, what I sent to you is what we're going off of. And so if by the time we catch that I didn't do it right by the 4th person, but they're like, I don't want to do it like this, it's too late at that point. We're weeks along in the process at that point, and we're not just going to start over because we're going to have to take another 2 weeks to do it. So, and again, I'm not pushing anyone to say you have to get this done. This is stress-free quarantine. Tim, when you get to it, you get to it. There is no stress here. That's why, it's supposed to be simple and easy. If you want to do this on your iPhone, you can. Obviously, we've all got our little gadgets, our home studio gadgets now, and these are sounding really good. But if you want to do this on your iPhone, that's totally fine. It's been an interesting experience. It's been positive and negative. I can say that. It's caused some internal rifts that are potentially having a permanent effect on the band.
I would say, though, sometimes in doing the Music Marauders podcast, I found a similar vibe where it's like you're waiting for 5 people to say yes before anything gets decided, and democracy began to slow down progress. And I don't often feel that way. I think democracy is very important. Typically,
you're absolutely right. There's a point where it stifles the process.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you just need to say, this is what needs to get done. I need it done. This is how it has to happen. If you don't want to be involved, step aside. But the train's rolling down the track. Here we go.
That's exactly what I said.
Good on you.
And the person hopped off the train. Seriously. No, seriously.
I hear you.
Like for good.
Okay. Okay. So, but I think
I think is fine. It's okay. We're in a position where we've got so much time right now that it doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah. I think, like I said, it's just sometimes that train has to go and needs to get to the station at a certain time. And yeah. So do you want to play something?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, this is my stolen Santa Cruz guitar. I just did a video for Santa Cruz that they posted yesterday.
I watched it this morning, actually. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, those
What's
guys
the story? Like with the guitar, how did it got stolen?
It got stolen at Rhythms on the Rio in South Fork, Colorado, out of a locked backstage trailer, an RV, that was where the Nurseries and the Honky Tonk Home Slice were storing all of their instruments and tequila, and only my guitar was stolen along with a case of Nurseries tequila.
Devastating.
Someone said they saw someone sneaking across the Rio Grande River with a guitar case while we were all out at dinner, and it was locked, security backstage, etc. So I actually ended up getting an insurance claim on it.
How did it come back to you?
So I got paid for the value of the guitar, and then it came back to me totally randomly. Someone walked it into the Denver Folklore Center. It was in a rainstorm on a Friday night in a trash bag, and the guy didn't want to tell them any information. He said he bought it, and it was really cheap, and he asked why it was so cheap for such a nice guitar, and the guy implied that it was stolen. It was a hot guitar, so he just wanted to get it back to the rightful owner, and didn't want to reward or anything. But the tag on the inside has been ripped out. But Santa Cruz like a lot of companies, they actually engraved the serial number up the neck, and you need a mirror to see it. So when they brought it in, I had it registered as stolen kind of everywhere, and so they figured out the serial number, called Santa Cruz to ask them where that guitar was sold to, which was Wood Songs in Boulder, where I'd bought it in 2005. And then, I had told those guys it was stolen, so they had it registered as stolen with my name and number on it. And I got the phone call from the Denver Folklore Center. I was having lunch with John Eisenberg at that barbecue place in Five Points that's no longer there. God damn, what was that place called?
Tom's Home Cooking?
Tom's Home Cooking, yeah.
THC, man.
Yeah, THC. And yeah, that place is awesome. That place was so good. Yeah, the fuck? I was 20 minutes from there when they called me. So I ran over there, and lo and behold, they gave me my guitar back.
Wow.
It was pretty legit. Yeah, I was extremely. I was actually thinking about quitting music that day. I had had an awful time at a Winter Wondergrass Avon that weekend, and this was Monday. And I had to go back to work after like raging it, and then I was, still working a full-time job with Open Vape and trying to tour full-time. And I was just really burnt out, not feeling like we were getting any results, and I needed a sign. I literally said that to myself, like, I need some kind of a sign to like stick with this. And my guitar came back that day. And it had doubled in value in the 6 years, and I had gotten the insurance claim on it.
I bet you never thought you'd see it again.
I never thought I'd see it again. So pretty unheard of story that this is a free guitar that's now worth twice what I paid for it, what they paid me for it. And I now have a great relationship with Santa Cruz Guitars. They asked me to make that video, which was an honor, obviously. Some of my heroes were on that list of people who had done videos. So I was very stoked, and they're great folks. And I'm definitely going to get another Santa Cruz at some point to replace the show that I use with, or the guitar that I use with the Drunken Hearts, My Callings. So, yeah, this is a new song that I wrote just before quarantine, inspired by Tom Petty. It's called New Reseda. Sky was falling, just another projection. The world stopped turning, another twist in the tale. You were the flower, and I was your honeybee. You let me land upon your sweet little peach. It's a long ride to Reseda, especially with a big load. She's my only senorita, last stop on this lonely road. I was the fire, and you were a field I laid to waste. I lit that soil till I was free and wild. The city looks so small from so far away. Reminds me of that summer and the storm that blew our dreams astray. It's a long ride to Reseda, especially with a big load. She's my only senorita, last stop on this lonely road. Sky was burning, we watched it all fall apart, suspended in one moment, captured inside our drunken hearts. We're through our misfortune, up against the wall, blinded by pain and stumbling through space and time. a long ride to Reseda, especially with a big load. She's my only senorita, last stop on this lonely road. It's a long ride to Reseda, especially with the big load. She's my only senorita, last stop on this lonely road. On this lonely road.
Jesus, that sounded great, man. Yeah, I love your voice. I love your writing and just the general vibe. It has a very storyteller, dusty road kind of vibe to it. And, there's not a lot of that left in music, at least on the mainstream front. But I'm grateful for your storytelling. I'm grateful for your lyrical output. And I love that vibe, man. I love the sound of your music.
Thanks, dude. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really great.
And thanks for all you do in supporting people like me and artists and, gig workers, sound guys, everybody, promoters. We're all in a very, very interesting time right now. So we need all the help we can get.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think something good and positive is going to come out of this for independent artists. I think we're going to be given a platform here soon to monetize the streaming in a way that we haven't yet. Not just like, hey, here's my tip jar, but hey, buy a ticket and come watch my show. And I'm already working on it, and it's exciting. So
very cool.
Virtual festivals, things of that nature, where hey, you can, I wouldn't necessarily want to sell a ticket for like a full day's worth of music, but I would maybe sell a ticket for each band, Yeah,
so it's interesting.
You can buy a ticket to whichever one you want, and then that band gets X%.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Obviously, the majority of it would go to the band.
Sure. I think that this isn't a long-term thing. I think that in the next year, 2 years, we'll be through this. There'll be some sort of a solution, some better way forward. And hopefully those couple of years that we've had off have created an anticipation and appreciation for what you do and people like you do. And I hope that people come out swinging with support. And I think that there'll be a return to normalcy at some point. I think we just have to hold through this weird time in the interim.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's hard to really know, which side of the coin to put your faith in, which is why it's nice to just be like, I'm not sure, because there's a school of thought that says we need to all stay inside as long as possible, otherwise it's going to prolong all this, and then there's a school of thought that says you need to get out there and embrace it so we can get back to normal. So, and I don't know who's right there, but I think both have valid science behind them.
Sure. I think for me, I don't know the answer either, and I fall somewhere in between those two things. Obviously, want to err on the
science. There are scientific facts backing both sides of that argument.
True, and I guess for me, I don't want to be the first part of the wave that is testing the water.
Yeah, Magic Means. That's a very bold move. I hope it goes well for those boys. I love them. Obviously, Beanstalk is at Rancho too, and they're friends of ours. But man, I've already seen people, saying, "Hey, like, who's gonna ride with me? Come ride in my car." And that, and it's just, there's gonna be drugs involved, obviously, not to mention, driving. I'm assuming. So you know, I'm proud of them for moving the ball so quickly. You know, we all heard about the drive-in concept initially when this all happened. And it seems like at some point that will be a lucrative idea. Whether or not it makes sense for anyone anywhere to gather in mass for music this summer is very debatable. And I wish them the best, but with the demographic as well that generally attends their festival, I think that's not going to be productive for what some of us are trying to do, you know? So
I
I wish them the best, but I don't really get behind that one.
I'm going to be sitting that one out, and then there's a couple other concerts that announced that we're just going to sit it out. I don't want to be, again, just testing the water, but I did see one of my friends post on Facebook that he was going to be flying out from the East Coast to go to Beanstalk, that event. And now you're talking about people traveling through the air into different regions, and it's like...
He's going to fly to Beanstalk. Yeah, right. And then who's going to ride in his car?
Yep.
You know, keep in mind also, if these kids are like dropping out and they have to stay inside a car... Like, okay. Sounds like a good idea until you can't stay in that car any longer or you're going to fucking kill somebody.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk in that. I think it's probably too soon, but let's let them test the water, and I'm hoping for their success and safety as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But yeah, man, always great seeing you.
Yeah, good to talk to you too, dude. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thanks for having me. Much love to you and Carly.
Thank you for listening to Galaxy Tenants. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts.